What if that very thing that made you strong almost broke you? I'm Kwame. I'm a professional world champion bodybuilder and the youngest person to ever turn pro with muscle mania. And also, you may have seen me on TV as Maximus, the gladiator in the Australian TV series. I'm here to tell you about the obsession that defined my life and almost destroyed it. Now, if you've ever been trapped by a goal, this is for you. But before I tell you how I came to this and how I did all that, I need to tell you the real unspoken price I paid for it all and what you need to hear to make your next move. If you're thinking about getting into bodybuilding, especially competitive bodybuilding, and you've ever felt trapped by a pursuit or simply wondered about the dark side of the extreme in bodybuilding, that extreme dedication, you might want to watch this before you make your next move. This isn't just my story, it might be yours. And if this resonates with you, hit that like button, share, subscribe, because someone needs to hear this. Today, I want to talk to you guys about something incredibly personal, something that's often whispered in corners of the fitness world, but rarely truly confronted. My bodybuilding obsession and the unspoken price it demanded from my life. Now, my journey began in bodybuilding way back when I was a kid, about 12 or 13 years old. Me living in the countryside, I played a lot of sports, but I remember a very specific trigger. I just wanted to look good in this, a singlet. I wanted to look strong, I wanted to be powerful, I wanted to be a man. Luckily, my dad bought a pair of dumbbells, 20 kilo dumbbells when you combine both of them to be precise, and for 20 kilos, I worked up to that. That's when my obsession started. I worked up to that with one arm, doing that for reps. And for a 13-year-old boy, that's quite a lot. And if you guys even remember those infomercials, the Upkin Pro, I remember my younger brother and I using that for hours and hours, and the abs were so sore. On the first day that bought it, we actually assembled that. So that's where all that obsession started. Then at 17, that shifted. That's when I started training properly for my first ever bodybuilding competition. Under the guidance of a coach, of course. You should never start a bodybuilding comp without a coach. Seriously, it was fantastic. Everything was laid out, precise, science-backed. My nutrition and training, I know what I needed to do. And my coach supported me. And, my coach had this smart, sustainable approach, but I didn't hear enough of it. I wanted to know why, but I had this obsession of I wanted to be the best. And I didn't even know that this started from such a young age. And when I look back now, I understand. I really understand. The feeling of hitting personal bests, it was like one of those things. I felt like a video game character and I was trying to level up in real life, to be honest. But it was a great feeling. It was very rewarding and it was like a drug, to be honest. It was because you got that dopamine release. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Now, getting into the bodybuilding community as well, there was this really beautiful community with respect from other lifters, and you all shared that suffering. You could celebrate your wins and celebrate, your triumphs as well too. We were all in this together. It was a great community. It taught me a lot. It taught me about patience, understanding true growth takes time. It taught me consistency and to be relentless and focus on the approach. It gave me confidence, which, I kind of had a bit of it, but this kind of confidence I had never had before. It didn't make me egotistical, but just made me feel better about myself, and that was confidence. But it wasn't just the ability of looking good in a singlet. It was the ability to commit and see something through. I felt powerful. I felt capable, and genuine, in control of my life for once. And it was the most fun I had while I had it, you know, apart from sports, because coming from a sporting background, like I got that dopamine release from that. So when I moved into bodybuilding, I got that same dopamine release from achieving something. What felt like strength was quietly becoming a cage built for like meal prep containers, you know, this rigid training programs, training schedules, and there was this ever-present voice in my head telling me, no matter how far I got, I just wasn't good enough. You know, and a lot of sacrifices were made during this, but they weren't recognized. You know, that very discipline that initially served me began to turn against me, and it started to become unforgiving when it started to impact my personal life. So things like social gatherings, weddings, even just dinners with friends, I'll put them off sometimes because bodybuilding was my priority. Couldn't miss a workout, you know? I couldn't eat that. You know, I became that guy that was always on a diet. People stopped inviting me to events because they're like, oh, you know, he's on a bodybuilding prep, and they respected that, which I liked. But, you know, sometimes you also wanted to feel invited, even if you couldn't go. So that also started to play on my mind. It just started not becoming fun anymore. It was like a chore. It wasn't about celebrating anymore. It was about sticking to my routine. And then I started to feel a little bit like a robot. I never actually asked myself, like, why was I so obsessed with food? Why am I always so tired and irritable? You know, I also started to care a lot more what people thought of me, and I became more sensitive. And to be honest, my hormones were probably everywhere, being on those low-calorie diets as well too. And I never actually knew that the person I was fading. And not just fading, but replaced by a driving, singular, all-consuming goal. Like all of that just in one. Just this robotic person. You know? And it broke my heart to see that distance grow. But I was so focused and so linear focused that I probably didn't, I wouldn't say I didn't care. Subconsciously I did, and all those emotions probably rushed out after. However, when you are clouded by stress and clouded by your goals, there's certain things that don't show. And you don't get that time to sit back and reflect, which I think is super important, and one thing I've actually learned. You know, and it really broke my heart to see the distance grow. I felt powerless to stop it. I was like in a tunnel. I couldn't see anything but the stage lights at the end. I had this hyper focus, and honestly, it was selfish. Bodybuilding is selfish. It also showed me what it's like focusing on just me too. So that was a positive there. But I also find that everyone needs balance, right? The world needs balance. That's why I love the yin and yang, good and bad, you know. And I believe you should focus on you, but don't take for granted what's around you. You don't want to hurt or lose the people you love in that process. And what's life when you lose the things that matter the most to you? And that's when you should start to sit back and reflect on your goals. I know I've learned a lot over the years, and it's taken me a long time to make a video like this, so that's very important. And the really important part is a lot of the pain I put myself through was my own fault. You know, my coach had a precise plan for my nutrition and training, but that obsessive drive kicked in. I started thinking, if a little is good, more must be better. I'll try to do too much. I'll cut my carbs when my coach hadn't told me to. I was thinking this would make me leaner and faster, so this was one of my comps. I ran my body into the ground doing excessive amounts of extra cardio that I wasn't told to do. And at this time already, I was like already exhausted, so it wasn't doing me any good. And then at that point, I started getting sick. And I went to the doctors, and you know, my white blood cell counts were low. I was consistently getting sick, but I pushed through till my show. But it also made me think, like, this wasn't my coach failing me. It was me just failing myself. It was my inability to trust the process that insatiable desire for faster, more extreme results. I wanted the results fast, and I'm sure most of you can relate to that. You know, it was a classic case of, pushing too hard and thinking I could get there faster, I could be better. But little did I know that I was self-sabotaging myself. And this constant overexertion led to direct mental warfare. That's when body dysmorphia kicked in. The mirror became my enemy. No matter how much I gained, how lean I got, I was never enough. I developed that severe body dysmorphia people would have never known, because they always said I look good, but in the mirror, what I really saw was I was just never good enough. I was a small person, I was weak, and my anxiety around food became crippling, because I was counting every calorie. I developed my whole rituals that if I ate off plan, I'll have to punish myself with more cardio. Just to, even my sleep was starting to suffer because I was overthinking at night. My mind was always racing, I was always calculating, I was always critiquing myself, and I was always just so mean to myself. I really didn't. I was a prisoner in my own head. That's the way to put it. And outside seemed perfect. My body was screaming for help on the inside. Definitely had a lot of hormonal imbalances with all that fatigue, a weakened immune system, and I was always sick. But the irony of that is I was pursuing health. I was trying to be healthy, but that also forced me to focus on getting a degree in nutrition and food science. Again, nothing against my coach at the time. He knew what he was doing. He had a plan. I just couldn't trust him. Sorry, that's wrong. I could trust him, but I just didn't trust the process in the sense that I thought I could fast forward my results. And, I could have probably asked him to explain things to me more so that, again, I take full accountability for that. But I rather chose to dig deeper. I was curious. I wanted to learn. So I thought, you know what? I was in the marketing, a media degree before. So I was kind of I'll switch up my degrees. I had good grades to be able to switch up to nutrition and food science. So I actually switched up my degree to that so I could learn more about myself. It's funny how life happens. I started to do good. After learning about my body, after learning about my nutrition, I was killing it. I literally I don't want to say I did not lose the competition, but every single division I entered from there, I won every division. And I was chasing trophies. My social media started to increase. My following was getting better. I started getting more opportunities. One which was the Australian Fitness Expos as a special guest. And that was a big honor for me. One thing about me is I've never really taken anything for granted, in the sense of I've never had an ego. I probably, if anything, I probably had more I think they call it tall poppy syndrome, where you sometimes don't think you deserve to be where you're at. So being a special guest at expos, I always wanted to give my best, and that's always something that probably even came from bodybuilding, always trying to give my best and trying to perform. But I was running my body down, I didn't have enough food, and I was doing a demo at the expo. This is where I tore my bicep off the bone, and for me this wasn't just a setback. It put me out for almost a year, to be honest, to be able to get back to where I wanted to be. And you see, at this point, I was already a pro bodybuilder. I was competing at the Musclemania, and my previous show, I had made history of the youngest person to ever turn pro in the whole history of Musclemania. And then I competed in my first show, my pro debut. I competed against Ulysses Jr., who most of you would have known. I came third to him. There was a guy called Charles Soong. You guys will also know he's very famous. And I was about 1 point away from Charles Soong, and he was also very close to Ulysses. So for me, that was very big. I didn't expect. I said if I go in the top 5 in my pro, because I always wanted to aim high, but I didn't expect to be third to these people and that close. For me, they were I looked up to them, and I still do. They have I really, really love what they do, and I've always loved what they do. So it's, for me, it's always, they've always been, you know, like, they were fitness icons I looked up to, and I'd always strive to be as big as them. And you know, you always need a hero to look up to. So going back to the expo and tearing my biceps, after tearing my biceps, all that progress, identity felt like it was just ripped away. That was when the real darkness kicked in. So much anxiety, depression, self-doubt. I didn't even know who I was anymore without the gym, without that constant grind, without that pursuit of physique, which I couldn't really go for. My fitness had always been my identity. And when I couldn't train, I had no idea who I was out of it. And the feeling of being out of control and pushing my body so far beyond what was healthy, even when I knew my coach had a better plan, it sparked something. It made me actually realize that I needed to understand more about what I'm doing before I did it. And that's where the science kicked in. And that's why I studied nutrition and food science. But you see, the thing is, like, there's always a reason to why we do things. And if you guys can take one thing away from this before getting to the end of this video, is you need to ask yourself why, and constantly ask yourself, why are you doing something? What is your end goal? That would answer a lot of your questions. And I didn't. And the reason why you don't ask yourself those questions is we get so fixated on the end goal and so focused that we lose track of even why we're doing these things, and you know, the journey. And you know, the why and the how are two big things I think you should constantly keep asking yourself, because you are going to come across hurdles with any journey, and your path could change. Okay, so that is something consistently you should keep asking yourself. Okay, so I had one of the fastest recoveries, according to my surgeon, he'd ever seen. And that was something that bodybuilding taught me. It was the discipline. One of the disciplines I learned about bodybuilding after tearing my bicep was, you know, my recovery was supposed to be about 6 to 9 months. But I took that relentless focus, the same attention to detail I used for training, and poured it into my rehab. And I followed every instruction, every exercise. I had a great physio as well. And this wasn't just about physical healing. It taught me a very valuable lesson that I could not have been taught that. Like, I had to experience it. Instead of thinking, I have to train, I started thinking, I am privileged to be able to train. You know, every single session, every rep, every meal was a blessing. I started making myself a victim of something I chose to do myself. No one forces me to do bodybuilding. Why am I complaining? That is the thing. I walked into a gym and I saw people, it wasn't just even about physique. They could be smaller, skinnier, but they got to train. I didn't get to train. So that changed my whole mindset about training as well, to make me appreciate training even more, even till this day. That goes back. So if you ever get to that point where you start to feel tired and you have this goal, especially with training, movements, and health, just come back to my story. I hope you don't have a story like that where you have to tear your bicep or go through this for you to understand that. But come back to my story about not being able to do some of the things you love because that's been taken away from you. And that's when you start to realize, that's where perspective kicks in. You know, I learned resilience pushing through tough workouts, and I applied that same mental fortitude into overcoming a lot of my genuine challenges in life. Not just lifting heavier weights. I feel like this is actually like a real superpower. You know, I still set goals for my well-being, my personal growth, alongside my fitness as well too. So that's one of the things I found, that bodybuilding has given me these tools. When I say tools, these challenges that I've overcome, and these things I've overcome, these hurdles I've overcome, is basically a resilience I've built. And this resilience I've built has been able to carry me through other aspects of my life. And one of the biggest lessons I'll say is, my body is just one part of me. My worth isn't dictated by my body fat percentage, how big my biceps or my pecs are. I am worthy because of me. And this was the hardest lesson to stick in and stick with me. And for me to just learn. But it's also very liberating. Over the years, I've learned to listen to my body. It hasn't been hard. Being able to enjoy foods without guilt. An example, I had a mate's birthday yesterday and we had some ramen and I went past this bakery that I really love. You know, I've got some good memories there. And I said to him, on our way back, we're going to this bakery. He's also a bodybuilder as well. And you know what he said to me? I actually coach him at the same time too. He's like, hell yeah, we are. And I was like, yep, there's no guilt. I'm not going to tell you what I ate because you guys might be on the journey and the challenge and I don't want to distract you from that. But damn, it was good. Yeah, it was really, really good. So I'm learning to listen to my body, enjoy foods without guilt. And it's been a great journey to rediscover foods as both nourishment and a source of pleasure in social settings for me. I usually end up eating pretty well by myself, but I also enjoy my guilty pleasures. And in social settings, I use food as that, what food is, you know? And, you know, friendships, showing up for people that matter the most to me. And because when you are not just bodybuilding, okay, this again is just even with work, where anything that includes stress, that can cloud your judgment and can take away a lot of the things, the great things that you have in life, and it can cloud your thoughts. So I think it's always great. So just being able to rebuild like friendships, understanding the people that are there for you and being able to give back and also support people that are really there for you. So yeah, I find this is super important. So one thing I just want to touch on is the greatest gains I've made aren't just in muscle, but in my mind. You know, it's been like therapy. The mindfulness has allowed me to be imperfect. It's okay to be imperfect. And I'm finding these are actually like my real victories. This is where that fun and freedom lie. So you guys remember, like, at the end of the day, this all led to me competing and winning the overall title, winning the Maximus overall title, and you know, this didn't just come from one thing. You know, I say your journey, your hardships, they shape you as a person. So all of this, like, that was one of my easiest prep I had to date, and it was where I performed the best. I was the happiest. I took everyone that supported me there with it. I don't think I pissed anyone off. I don't usually anyway, I'm more quiet, but it was fun. So I won the overall Maximus world title, a goal I had from the start of not that federation specifically, from when I started competing. And why I had that goal, it was my coach was a pro world champion natural bodybuilder, and that was just my goal. I just wanted to be a pro world champion natural bodybuilder. So the day before my show, I remember I was posing in the bathroom. My younger brother traveled with me and a friend, and we're posing in the bathroom, and my goals physically had been hit. Like, I had deep strided glutes, and in bodybuilding, you guys know what that means. It means your conditions at the peak level. And I said to my brother, I said, bro, regardless of what happens, I am happy. I can actually start to celebrate a bit earlier because regardless of my placings, look, I still want to place good because it's a lot of pressure. And I've worked hard. That was my goal was to win. But even if I don't win, physically, I am content. I am happy. So regardless of what happens, I have won. I actually said that. I'm like, I have won. I'm happy. And he just like nodded. It's like, yeah, cool. I was like, oh, shit, I'm pouring out my heart, this deep emotional conversation. Bro is just like, yeah, cool. I was like, yeah, cool. But this was deeper for me. So all that discipline, all that condition I developed over those years, it didn't go to waste. Recently, so in 2024, I got the incredible opportunity to step on stage and play Maximus as in the Australian Gladiator series. It was surreal, like an exhilarating experience. All those years of training, all those hard lessons from my injury rehab, had basically oined into this one opportunity for me and more. I've done a lot more on TV as well too, but it's an absolute blast. I got a chance to use my physical and high energy and in an entertaining environment. I got to use my personality and become part of something iconic, like something that I've always dreamed of, being a kid and seeing like the actual Gladiators TV show and seeing legends and being able to be one for the future generation. I was like, wow, that was a true honor. And in the world where you like flooded, and I just want to touch on something, especially on social media, in the world where you flooded with like the perfect physiques on social media, it's so easy to fall into this trap. People are always searching for answers about mental health and fitness, about how to overcome body image issues and the true cost of extreme dedication. My hope is that my story can be a cautionary tale, but also a beacon of hope, showing that you can learn some invaluable life lessons, even from the toughest struggles, you can find balance yourself. So, to wrap this up, what is bodybuilding? I find it's a profound challenge. It's a journey that tests you physically and mentally. I believe it tests you in ways that you can't even imagine, and you would never be able to until you're actually in it. And if you face those challenges, you learn from your mistakes and push through. You build resilience that will carry you through every other aspect of your life. You understand discipline. You understand perseverance. You would know how to push to your limits. And while understanding your body, it will refine you, it will teach you incredible lessons and open doors that you never know existed. And just so you know this, if you're not ready for that intense test, if you're not ready for that deep self-reflection and potential sacrifices, you're probably not ready for bodybuilding. It will challenge you, it will test you. And this is what a lot of people don't know before they get into it. But if you are, it can be an incredible path of growth. You would learn a lot about yourself, And guys, girls, share your stories in the comments. I want to start a conversation about this. I'll be replying to every single comment. And I want to do this more often. So if you can, support me by liking, comment, subscribe, share this to your mates as well too, or anyone that would benefit from hearing my story. And I'm sure a lot of you have people that are looking to get into the sport, or even if this story can relate in any how. I do this because I want to be there, and I wish I had this when I was younger. I do this speaking to my younger self and wishing I had this before I started bodybuilding. If I had this would have saved me a lot. But I'm also grateful for everything I've achieved, and I'm also grateful for everything that's failed me, because it's made me who I am today. Guys, this is the first episode of a series I'm wanting to start. If you did enjoy this, please hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Much love and support. Your boy is out. Peace.